While we were on the hillside, we investigated another problem we'd been told about. Wastewater from the settlement has been allowed to run off the hillside, and the pollution has poisoned some of the fields. All the vegetation here looks like it is sort of washed over, as if at certain times of the year a stream flows down here. We had a meeting with the mayor. Marder has a population of just over 2,000 people. Over the years, the town has lost about a third of its land to the building of the settlement, new roads, and now the separation wall. There is never any consultation or compensation for the land loss or damage. 2,000 to 3,000 olive trees have been destroyed or lost in the last year alone. Some farmers have lost all their trees, their only livelihood. 2/3 of the population in the region are now living on less than $2 a day. Construction work on the separation wall began in June 2005. Throughout the region there were daily protests such as marches and blocking the bulldozers. This led to hundreds of arrests and over 2,000 injured in the area alone. People have been imprisoned, including boys as young as 10 years old, for periods of days to months. IWPS took these pictures of a demonstration in Marder. We found the remains of sound grenades, bullet cases and tear gas canisters, still littering the ground from such confrontations. The town has also been sealed off completely on some occasions by the army digging up the road. The damage in the tarmac is still visible now. The town also suffers constant harassment, gunfire from the settlement, shooting at people and making holes in the water tanks on the roofs. The town suffers from marauding gangs of armed settlers and army raids on houses, especially at night. The mayor explained their fears the town may eventually be ethnically cleansed and demolished. Its only crime is being too close to the settlement. I filmed frequent army patrols along the main road, some searching the fields with searchlights. One night I was stopped at gunpoint by a troop of soldiers.
So I'm filming this in daylight, but I'm just telling the story of what happened when I was doing my midnight walk from Harris back to Marder. And I didn't want to get stopped by the patrols. About 3 or 4 Land Rovers with flashing lights had gone past me, so I was walking parallel with the road, but I had to come on this little bit of the main highway. And I'll show you the earth mound that I was heading towards. And suddenly, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, these searchlights came over the top. Of course, they were on top of a military jeep, and it's coming towards me, and suddenly there's soldiers piling out with, I can see the black gleam of gunmetal in their hands, and I put down the bag slowly, and I'm saying, English, English.
Maybe a bit of a heart-stopper and a laugh for an international, but if I'd been a Palestinian, I might have been beaten up or had my arms or legs broken. At sunset, everybody heads for their village, another restriction on Palestinian life. At a basic but important level, in common with many other West Bank towns, Marder doesn't have a rubbish collection system any longer. The Israelis interfere with the movement of the rubbish lorries, and in some places have even commandeered the rubbish tips too. In Marder and towns like it, rubbish has to be burnt in the streets. There was a permaculture research and education centre in the town. Started in 1993, it was funded by organisations in Germany, Canada, the US, Holland, Australia and the UK. Students came from all across the Middle East to study and work there. But in November 2000, the Israeli army came and destroyed its records, nurseries and seed banks. Today the building looks locked up and deserted, the polytunnels gaping open to the skies. The town has an attractive nursery for young children, and school buildings for junior boys and girls. In every town I visited, children seemed to enjoy going to school. Education is valued to an extent that is embarrassing by UK standards. But in Marder we found that because of the harassment, children were afraid to use outdoor recreational facilities. Although the school has a good quality tarmac football pitch, when we visited it was deserted. When we asked about this, we were told it attracts trouble from the settlers and the army. I interviewed a young lad of 7 or 8 who had been abducted by the army.
That yesterday the soldiers took him to a place there, and they didn't hit him, and asked him to tell the soldiers about the persons who throw stones. Yeah. Of course he don't know. He doesn't know.
One day we were out doing our shopping and I was filming the prettier aspects of the town. People work hard to grow their crops, to keep their houses looking nice, to tend their gardens, to grow attractive flowers, and to do what they can to beautify their environment. But the peace was suddenly shattered by the arrival of an armoured personnel carrier and an army jeep. They wove their way around the side roads of the town in a noisy and deliberate show of strength, and then eventually met up at the main square by the mosque. The soldiers piled out and slouched around, guns at the ready, even though there was barely anyone around. This seemed to go on for an eternity, when, I admit, the hairs on the back of my neck were standing up. But after about quarter of an hour of this militaristic posing, they went again. I was told these aggressive army patrols happen regularly, maybe several times a day, and at night. All throughout Palestine, boys and girls are growing up with the psychological damage of the brutalisation they've experienced in their childhoods. Out of respect, I didn't film the young men of Marder, but they were like fuming volcanoes, waiting to explode. They're being constantly provoked and can't retaliate, or things will get even worse for them and their community. What sorrow this must be for the older generations, still yearning for some hope. There is such vibrancy in the young people, but what hope is there for their future? After our week in Marder, I left the rest of the group to travel north to the town of Tukaram. Setting off on my own, with only 3 phrases of Arabic, my mission was to deliver the money raised by my Bristol Palestine Solidarity Campaign group to an orphanage there. I didn't even have the address. But in Palestine I was to discover that these things don't matter so much. The bus took me along on the narrow Palestinian road network, through high, dry hills, in some places so dry and rocky very little could possibly grow, but wherever possible built up into terraces and planted with olive trees. The Palestinians had to work very hard to extract a livelihood from these near barren hills, which is what is left after the settlers have grabbed the water and the best fertile lands.